Chyna exposed Vince McMahon long before his WWE firing, and even Triple H wasn't spared. Long before the scandals, before the lawsuits, before Vince McMahon was forced out of WWE, there was one voice who tried to warn us all. A legend, a trailblazer, a woman who broke barriers and spoke truth, no matter the cost. Her name was Chyna, and what she exposed about Vince McMahon, WWE, and even Triple H still echoes today. This is the untold story of how Chyna saw through the smoke and mirrors, and why the world is only now catching up to what she tried to reveal. Chyna, the ninth wonder of the world. Joanie Laurer, better known to the wrestling world as Chyna, was unlike anything the WWE universe had ever seen. She didn't fit the mold. She destroyed it. Debuting in 1997 as the silent enforcer of Degeneration X, Chyna immediately stood out. Not just because she was a woman wrestling men, but because she belonged in the ring. She wasn't a side act. She wasn't a gimmick. She was a star. She broke barriers. The first woman in the Royal Rumble. The first and only female Intercontinental Champion. A real threat to male superstars at a time when women were used mostly as eye candy. But behind the curtain, things weren't so empowering. Because Chyna was playing a dangerous game, with powerful men calling the shots. Backstage politics, the beginning of the end. As her popularity skyrocketed, so did the tension backstage. According to Chyna herself, in multiple interviews, Vince McMahon was never fully comfortable with her becoming too successful. In one interview, she recalled Vince saying, "You're doing great, but we have to find ways to soften your image. You're intimidating the other girls. And some of the guys." Despite that, Chyna kept getting over. The fans loved her. She was outselling most of the roster in merchandise and getting mainstream attention. And that made her dangerous. Not in the ring, in the boardroom, and perhaps most importantly, in Triple H's personal life. Chyna, Triple H, and the love triangle that shook WWE. Chyna and Triple H were more than just on-screen partners. They were in a real relationship. They had been together for years. But in the early 2000s, things began to change. Stephanie McMahon, Vince's daughter, had started appearing more on television. And behind the scenes, she was getting closer to Triple H. According to Chyna, she found out about their affair in the most brutal way imaginable. She discovered love letters between them, hidden in Triple H's belongings. In her own words, "He tried to deny it, but I knew." The letters said everything. They had already fallen for each other, and no one had the guts to tell me to my face. That betrayal didn't just break her heart. It shattered her career. Chyna's WWE exit, erasure in real time. Not long after discovering the affair, Chyna was let go from WWE. No major send-off. No final promo. No storyline closure. Just gone. Chyna has repeatedly claimed that she was forced out, not because of her performance, but because of the politics involving Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. She claimed Vince made it clear that she was a complication, and that there was no future for her in WWE if she wasn't on board with the new power dynamic. Even worse, WWE began rewriting history, acting as if she had never existed. Despite her pioneering contributions, Chyna was largely left out of documentaries, DVDs, Hall of Fame discussions, and retrospectives. Her crime? Getting too close to the throne. And speaking out, exposing the system. Chyna's interviews and revelations. Over the years, Chyna gave multiple interviews, each more revealing than the last. She spoke candidly about Vince McMahon's control over the women's division, often pushing for diva content over real athleticism. The double standards women faced, especially when they got too popular or too muscular. Her belief that WWE blackballed her from mainstream opportunities, especially after the Triple H-Stephanie relationship became public. How she was left without mental health support, while male stars with similar issues were often protected or rehabilitated. In one haunting interview, she said, "I gave my life to that company, and when I needed help the most, they acted like I never existed." Those weren't just bitter words. They were a warning. And today, they seem prophetic. Triple H's defense and WWE's narrative. To be fair, Triple H has responded, albeit indirectly, to some of Chyna's claims over the years. In a 2015 interview, he said, "The thing with Chyna is complicated. She did some things after WWE that made it hard for us to associate with her legacy. He was referring to her work in the adult film industry, something she turned to after wrestling opportunities dried up. But many fans felt the response was hypocritical. After all, WWE welcomed back stars with criminal records, addiction issues, and worse. Why was Chyna being punished for surviving? Why was her name taboo? And why was it okay to erase her from history, just to protect their image? The long road to recognition. And the tragic timing. In 2016, Chyna Laurer passed away at the age of 46 due to an accidental overdose. It was a gut punch to the wrestling world, and a haunting reminder of how far she'd been pushed. Just months later, WWE finally inducted her into the Hall of Fame, but not as an individual, as part of Degeneration X. Some saw it as progress. Others called it a last-minute PR move. Because while Triple H gave a glowing speech about her incredible impact, many couldn't forget how she had begged for that recognition while she was alive. And how Vince McMahon, the man who helped bury her legacy, wasn't there to acknowledge it. The parallels, Chyna's warnings versus Vince's downfall. Years after her passing, Vince McMahon would finally face the consequences she once warned about. In 2022 and 2023, multiple reports emerged of Vince paying millions in hush money to former female employees to silence misconduct allegations. He eventually stepped down, then returned, then was forced out again, this time permanently, as more lawsuits surfaced. But Chyna? She had spoken of this culture years earlier. She described a world where women were treated like assets, then discarded, where image was everything, and silence was enforced. She wasn't just telling her story. She was revealing a system. And now, that system is collapsing. Legacy. Chyna's impact in today's WWE. Ironically, many of the things Chyna fought for are now becoming standard in WWE. Women main eventing WrestleMania. Female stars competing in ladder matches, Royal Rumbles, and steel cages. Strong, athletic, powerful women like Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair being celebrated. But Chyna rarely gets credit for blazing that trail. Her legacy is too complicated, too messy, too honest. But real fans know the truth. Without Chyna, there is no women's revolution. Without Chyna, there is no path for women in men's matches. Without Chyna, the walls never crack. She was the first, and in many ways, the most important. Chyna's truth lives on. Chyna didn't just expose Vince McMahon. She's exposed. What do you think about Chyna's story? Should she have been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame while she was still alive? Did WWE betray her or protect their own? Let us know in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more wrestling deep dives. And always remember, real legends don't need permission to shine.